Hi, Dr. Yass here. I want you to really try to appreciate what you can expect to get when you obtain a Yass Method Zoom session. I think most would see this completely different from pretty much any type of treatment you've tried to obtain to this point. I think from the very beginning, you'll see that the session actually evolves around you, the individual seeking the care. And I think what's so different is the fact that for most of the treatments you get, the treatment is the treatment. It really isn't based on your symptoms or what's going on in your life or how you're different than anybody else seeking the treatment. People just provide treatments with the understanding maybe it'll work, maybe it won't. But what makes the Yass method different is the fact that there is an understanding that the symptoms you're experiencing are being elicited by a very specific tissue. So the tissue in distress that is creating your symptoms must be identified, and it can only be identified through one mechanism, the interpretation of the symptoms you're experiencing, because they're coming from the tissue in distress. So the entire session must, from the diagnostic aspect, be evolving around understanding your interpretation of the symptoms you're experiencing, which is to say, you must kind of be able to express a history. What brought on your symptoms? What are the types of things that make the symptoms better or worse? What types of treatments you've had? What types of medications you're on? What activities you do or don't do? How has your life changed? So, in the initiation of a Yass Method Zoom session, there is a huge give and take that occurs between the individual seeking the care and the practitioner. Because ultimately, the only way that I'm ever going to be able, and the Yass method is going to be able to resolve your symptoms, is by interpreting what the symptoms are you're experiencing to understand what tissue is creating those symptoms. So, one of the great compliments I get, and I really think is critical to the use of the method, is that I have always been said to be a great listener and that I fully engage in the use of listening to try to understand what it is that you're experiencing. And so the initiation of a Yass Method Zoom session begins with just listening and allowing the individual to talk. I'm sure this is highly unusual. I'm sure that the average person is just told what's going to happen and then it proceeds to happen. But that's not the way the Yass method works. The Yass method works by initiating the method by simply listening to the individual explain their circumstances, trying to understand exactly where they're having their symptoms, what types of things bring on the symptoms, what makes the symptoms better or worse, all of it, all of it, what the functional limitations might be that prevent the person from being able to live the life they choose. So the attempt to interpret how symptoms are affecting function, these are all leading to help to understand what tissue is in distress. And what the Yass method has found is that in more than 98% of cases, it's muscular. So if it is in fact muscular, there should be some correlation between symptom creation and some limitation in function. So the method starts off very differently, to where the individual basically is just talking and I might be asking questions to help them understand their symptoms. Once we get through the process of developing a history and understanding of how long this is going on, how it's affected the individual's lives, then we could go on and start looking to hone down what tissue is in distress by performing functional tests, different types of tests. So if there was a structural problem, let's say a meniscal tear at the knee or a labral tear at the shoulder or arthritis, then you're going to expect that there's going to be some loss of range of motion of a joint because structural variations limit joint function, joint ability to move, right? The structure is what makes the joint. And so if there's some structural variation, well, the joint by definition should have limitations in its ability to go through range of motion. So we're going to be looking at things like that. And if we bypass that and see that there's no limitation in function at the joint where the symptom exists, then we're going to say, okay, well, it doesn't look like there is a structural variation, regardless of what diagnostic tests findings say. You got to just ignore all that kind of stuff and just try to interpret the body's presentation of symptoms. So then we're going to look at possible muscular causes. And eventually, if we find that it is muscular, we're going to be able to hone down to establish which muscles are responsible. And this is done through an elaborate series of tests. Again, attempting to interpret what the body is trying to tell us about what tissue is in distress, creating the symptoms you're experiencing. I think that for most, this sounds very unique. It's certainly a process that I'm aware of, that I'm the only one who is attempting to utilize to establish cause, which is to say the tissue in distress. There must be a complete separation of understanding regarding the value of diagnostic testing, which has been shown to be baseless, and the recognition that the only way you're ever going to be able to resolve a symptom is to understand what tissue is creating the symptom. I mean, you just have to see it that way. So if in fact you are like 98% or greater of the population and the cause of your pain is muscle, we will eventually, as we've completed the evaluative technique aspect of the session, we're going to establish you have some muscular deficits, specific muscular deficits, and then we're going to go on to the treatment aspect of the session, which is to say that I'm going to present a series of exercises. I'm going to demonstrate how to perform them, and then you're going to perform them under my supervision. And we're going to make sure that you do them accurately. We're going to make sure you understand how to perform the exercises correctly, utilizing progressive resistance, which is the use of resistance to make a muscle adapt until its force output is greater than the force requirement of your activities. And that's how you eventually achieve the point of being pain-free and fully functional. So the great news about the method, again, I don't think people are aware of this, is the fact that these sessions are videotaped. So from the very beginning of the session through the end of the session, there's no memorization required. No one's asking you to understand the nuance of exercise or how to value the proper resistance to be utilized. It's all being videotaped. You're just going to get the videotape after that session. And then the 3 days a week that you are needed to do your exercise, you're going to utilize the videotape to make sure you're doing it correctly and make sure that you're progressing your resistance correctly. And you're going to be able to progress your ability to function without symptom. Ultimately, because of the fact that we were able to understand that the tissue of distress creating a symptom was muscle. The sessions continue, and you're asked to only do this again 3 times a week. Typically, it's going to be 3 or 4 exercises to be performed. All you need is a resistance band and a chair for the sessions. You just have to be able to be, or in most cases, it's beneficial if you can be videotaped in front of a door and frame, because that's what I like to secure the resistance band to create your resistance so you can perform your exercises against resistance. The exercises themselves are very, very easy to perform. The exercises are typically done in a very stable situation, meaning that for the majority of the exercises, you're sitting. Even in the few that you have to stand, you're very stable. I think that there is a lot of nuance to the exercises, but that's the essence of why you have to go through the process. Because if there are specific muscles responsible for creating your symptoms, until you identify those particular muscles, until you get those particular muscles to be able to adapt to the appropriate resistances to where they can then get stronger and allow you to perform your activity without straining, then you're never going to get to the point where you're going to be able to be pain-free and fully functional. So the concept throughout the process is that I simply expect that we do a 4-week follow-up session every 4 weeks, just to make sure that you are achieving your goals and we are reaching the points that we're looking for throughout the process. So I think it's important to understand that each one of these sessions really incorporates about a 4-week period of time, of which you have been given the tools to develop the appropriate strength. And then it's up to you to make sure that you follow the process. I think it's really critical for people to understand that if the cause of your pain is muscular, there's only one person who's ever going to be able to make you better, fully functional and pain-free, and that's you. So you simply have to be able to get the right diagnosis. If it is in fact muscular, then you just have to be shown how to strengthen the appropriate muscles, correctly utilizing the right resistance. Then it's basically up to you to achieve the goals. So you really only want the supervision, you only want the assistance where that's necessary. And then ultimately it's up to you to complete the process. The great news about the process is that once you have achieved that, as long as you sustain the process, you prevent yourself from having the symptoms going forward. So it's not just the resolution of symptoms that the Yass method provides, it's the mechanism to prevent it from reoccurring ever again. And so it's an incredibly empowering method. And so I felt it would be important for you to understand, get some more background into what these Zoom sessions include, how they work, what you could expect from them, what is expected of you in terms of doing the method and then utilizing it to resolve your symptoms. It's completely unique. There's nothing like it. I implore you to go to my website, www.livewithoutpains, go to the sessions page. So livewithoutpains.com/sessions and learn more about the sessions. There's testimonials. There's a little video of me explaining what you could expect. There's actually a raw video of a Zoom session so you could see what's included on there. And when you are ready, you can schedule a session for the day and time that's most comfortable for you. I hope that you utilize this, see it for what it is, completely unique method, and recognize that you do not have to live in pain, that you don't have to be a prisoner to a system, a medical establishment that just isn't in a position to understand how to properly diagnose and treat the cause of your symptoms. The reality is that in more than 98% of cases, the cause is muscular. The evidence is just overwhelming. And it's important to understand that muscular deficits do not show up on diagnostic tests, which is one of the primary reasons why the pain continues. If you don't recognize the tissue in distress eliciting your symptoms to be muscular, then the muscular deficit sustains. It just continues to exist. And as a result of that, when you try to perform your activity, you strain and continue to have your symptoms. So please consider the use of a Yass Method Zoom session. If you want to get in touch with me, if you think that this might be your path, you can contact me by email at drmitch@mitchellyass.com. It'll be in the description below. If you, again, want to make a Zoom session, you can by going to livewithoutpains.com. That's plural, livewithoutpains.com/sessions, and schedule your Zoom session today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you like my YouTube channel, Dr. Mitchell Yass, please subscribe to get notifications when new videos are added. For now, this is Dr. Mitchell Yass wishing you a pain-free, fully functional life. Bye-bye for now.